The game jam run by JackSepticEye and Ducky Dev has concluded, and let me tell you, it was a blast. Let me walk you through the music I made for the jam and show you how I made it. First of all, we had to decide on the idea for a video game. The jam's theme was Death is an Opportunity. After brainstorming it for a little bit, we decided to go for the what the hell did I just play kind of vibes and settle on the idea of a disco zombie apocalypse. It's absurd, funny, and related to the theme, and just short enough to deliver on time. After talking to my team for a little bit, I had the first iteration of the list of songs I would have to make. A rock song, a disco-EDM song, a dance song, a menu song, a sad song, and an elevator-like song. Wait, what? As I said, our goal was to make the game absurd while not taking ourselves too seriously, so I got to work. I started by making a funeral song, because I love making orchestral music for heartfelt moments. It's a little joy of mine, although I wouldn't categorize myself as an orchestral composer, more like a jack of all trades. This funeral song is relatively simple and designed to complement what's happening on the screen. The key to being a video game composer is that you have to amplify the gameplay, not compete with the game to take over the spotlight. Here is what it sounds like. This is the chord progression that the whole song is built around. It's melancholic, yet with a dash of bittersweetness. Sound selection is also very important, so I used a layer of piano, strings, sub, and a pad to tie it all together nicely and give it a nice texture. Automation is also important. Sometimes you can't simply introduce a new instrument out of nowhere. That can be jarring. Sometimes you use something that I call bridges. A pre-rendered, reversed first part of the new instrument with reverb. There are so many R's, man. This time, however, I simply automated the volume of the instrument. From there, I started working on the main menu song. I used a lot of layers of Omnisphere for this one, because Omnisphere is one of those essential plugins for scoring, at least in my opinion. The total is 8 different layers. Here is what it sounds like. The goal was to create something haunting and something that my teammates described as graveyard music. Thanks to YouTube and this video in particular, I managed to figure out and made my own song in this style. Now I have a graveyard song in my portfolio. When dealing with a lot of layers, you have to EQ almost everything to make sure that each layer has its own space and doesn't fight any other instrument, pad, or whatever you have. My favorite song from this jam was the metal song. I've always admired heavy rock music and grew up listening to bands like Slipknot, but I have never made anything like that before. Sure, I had the necessary tools and instruments, but each music genre requires different approaches to composing, mixing, and eventually mastering. I spent about a day trying to figure out the perfect rhythm for the drums that my guitars could follow. That would make my life so much easier and it would sound great. After going back and forth a little bit, this is what I came up with. Here is how it sounds with guitars. The rest seemed relatively simple, but we decided to make it special. Basically, we figured that we wanted to have our dance song broken down into different loops, and the further you progress in the game, the more complete the song would become, kind of building up to the climax of this game. To do that, I had to come up with a dance chord progression and a melody, figure out the right instruments, and mix it, master it, and send it to my teammates. Since I'm a huge fan of Avicii's work, I decided to use pianos, strings, trumpets, and horns for the instruments to keep it as organic as possible. Here is what the chord progression sounds like. Then I had to layer the other instruments and process them together. Usually, in dance music, we use sidechain compression to create that famous pumping effect. There are a lot of ways you can do that. For example, you can use the stock compressor in Ableton, set it to the sidechain mode, and dial the settings to your liking. However, most producers use plugins like Kickstart or LFO tool. We're going to use Kickstart for this song. Another important aspect of music is what's called a static mix. Basically, a static mix is balancing the levels and panning of your layers before applying any effects. I like doing that by adding a utility to every layer, mapping the gain up to my MIDI keyboard by pressing Ctrl+M, and adjusting the levels physically. The drum beat is what carries the energy. In dance music, it's usually a 4-on-the-floor beat. It's relatively simple to make. It has a straightforward kick pattern, a clap or a snare on every second kick, and a hi-hat in between the kick and the clap. Here is what it sounds like. After that, I had to export the song in different combinations for my team. For example, drums, drums and bass and piano, and so on. Here is another dance song that I made for this game. The processing is very similar, so I'll just play it for you without explaining the same thing over again. I hope you learned something from this video or found it entertaining. Stay awesome and keep making this world a better place.